things I'd do for Monarch.
Welcome back to Q Dads, it's me Steve, and finally the pace of Monarch is starting to pick back up. Not only were we given amazing shots of Godzilla, but also we get a lot more detail into Keiko and Lee's backstory, as well as an unexpected connection to the 2014 Godzilla film. Episode 5, titled Terrifying Miracles, starts off at the American Defense Summer Ball in 1955, a year after the first sighting of Godzilla. Keiko and Lee do what they can to spread the word of Monarch, but there seems to be a lot of animosity due to Keiko's Japanese heritage. This doesn't stop them though, as Lee has a dance with Keiko, almost showing his unpredictable side to the rest of the armed forces, as well as solidifying his feelings for Keiko. We get a brilliant scene with Lee and Keiko talking about children.
I want to know what my favorite thing about children is. Making them.
Now, here we get that important hint that Lee may actually be Kate and Kentaro's granddad, as me and Ben have speculated. It's like the show is teasing us with this potential storyline. But it stays a tease, at least for now, as things don't go Lee's way, as he's blocked by a message from Randa. We then head over to Delta Junction in Alaska, where Lee's being transported across the country. Here, our French lady, Michelle, helps Lee and frees him so he can ultimately help her do what Monarch was intended for in the first place, starting a revolution. Now, this scene was a bit disappointing. Michelle rocks up and takes down 4 armed guards, but the camera cuts away during all of it. It would have been nice to have had a little action scene showing off Michelle's skills. But we do, however, get a massive reference to the Godzilla film that started the reboot of this franchise. Michelle shares the news that her sister died in Janjira, and she was none other than Sandra Brody, a direct connection to the first film, suddenly making my feelings towards Michelle a bit stronger. Does this mean she was in on Monarch at the time? And do you think we'll see the return of Ford Brody in this series? Or could we see Sam Brody at some point, as essentially his grandparents were killed by the Titans? Kate, May and Kentaro are confronted by Lee and Michelle in Kate's home as they realise that Michelle is on their side. Something doesn't seem right though, with the looks exchanged between Michelle and May. I don't think what Michelle has told Lee is 100% accurate. We're then informed by Tim and the director that Hiroshi was actually kicked out of Monarch due to using satellites to look at things he shouldn't, viewing Earth for gamma rays and cosmic radiation. What were Monarch searching for in the first place in space? Were they searching for Ghidorah, and that's why Hiroshi was then checking Earth? Is this actually a Ghidorah reference? Or, again, were they searching for the upcoming Shimu in Godzilla and Kong, the New Empire? Randa and Keiko meet Dr. Suzuki in Japan. As it turns out, he made a Titan phone later used by Hiroshi. Our group heads out into the desert, and here is where things pick right up. We get Hiroshi. That's right, the man, the myth, the father of countless children, has finally returned, giving us a little wave in the desert.
No, wait a minute. I think he's waving us off.
Why? What's going on?
The reunion is short-lived though, as we get the emergence of Godzilla, which comes in 2 parts. The first is in 1955, where Lee and Keiko realise Godzilla survived the nuclear blast a year earlier, and the second being Godzilla waking in the desert, staring Kate in the eye and causing destruction all around. My thoughts are, why was Godzilla here in the first place? And where is it going now? I also questioned how no one thought it was strange a new hill had popped up in the desert. Surely they were scanning the planet constantly with satellites, and the fact Hiroshi had already scanned there before, you think someone might have noticed. We head back to 1955 for the last time this week. The 3 discuss what they should tell General Puckett, only to find a team already in their room, explaining to the 3 that due to Lee's absence, the General has now put him in charge. I assume this is what ultimately breaks down Lee and Keiko's relationship. This also maybe starts to explain why Bill started hiding his files, if the 3 are no longer in charge of Monarch. Now, the questions I have from here are, do the team ever get full control of Monarch back? If they do, is it something to do with Lee? As in 2015, he's a colonel, which I believe is a few ranks higher than he was in 1955. All in all, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I wonder if they don't tell them about seeing Godzilla again, which is why it's hard for Bill to get support for Skull Island, as the army believes all the Titans are dead. Moving on to our final scene, and something we've joked about in the cast. That being, are May and Lee actually working for someone else? In the final scenes in 2015, Lee takes the map and tells the others they can follow him or head to the nearest settlement. Kate, May and Kentaro decide against it, forcing Lee to leave with Michelle. As the three of them head to the settlement, May finally comes clean about being the reason Monarch were able to track them, revealing she had done something dodgy in the past for money, and she can help them get anywhere they want. Kate decides to storm off, ending the episode. Now, if you've not watched our cast, we've been questioning the motives of May and Lee for a while. I think May's hiding something more, especially with the calls to Lyra. However, I want to talk about Lee. I'm now wondering if he essentially starts the eco-terrorist group that causes Ghidorah to wake in the King of Monsters film, as he almost has the same rhetoric here as Charles Dance's character does in that film, about trying to help Godzilla and save more people by not hiding things. So this makes me wonder if he will be the cause of the disaster he's trying to stop. Overall, the episode was actually not bad and much better than the previous two. Yeah, we didn't get a new Titan, but we got some incredible shots of Godzilla and speculation of something bigger, which must be Ghidorah. I don't see what else it could be other than maybe Shamu from the upcoming film. If there is something else, this would leave unanswered questions, as why has this not been mentioned in any of the films, seeing as this would have taken place in 2015, 4 years prior to the events of the King of Monsters film. Unless the story for Monarch is actually the stopping of a potential disaster. As in the King of Monsters film, yes, I know, I keep mentioning it, but it's the next film chronologically, so it's the closest thing we have in the timeline. Anyway, the King of Monsters film is 4 years after this, and they seem to easily be able to track Titans. But in 2015, they can't even track one. So I'm thinking Hiroshi, along with the tech from Dr. Suzuki, are the main focus points of this series, as it's clear these devices can make Titans surface. Which makes me think maybe Lee or Hiroshi nearly wake another Titan, only to be stopped at the last moment. Is this the disaster that gets stopped in Monarch, with the Titan phone tech then falling into the hands of Monarch, so they are then able to track Titans, which leads straight in to the next film? Speaking about Hiroshi, why was he in the desert and why did he run? Was it because he recognised his children and didn't want that awkward conversation, or was it actually because he was trying to get ahead of Godzilla? Or is there some ulterior motive here too? If the monster phone, as I'm going to call it, is the precursor to the Orca, is Hiroshi actually trying to wake the Titans on purpose in some weird attempt to somehow save people? It does always feel that in these movies and shows that the Titans are misunderstood, and we clearly saw Godzilla look Kate in the eye and not kill her. So does Hiroshi want the Titans exposed to show they're not just giant monsters? Just touching back on that look with Kate for a moment, it almost looked like Godzilla recognised her. Could Godzilla have had a run-in with Keiko, and Godzilla almost recognises Keiko in Kate? It sounds weird, but stranger things happen in the Monsterverse. And in a previous iteration of Godzilla, they have had it befriend certain humans. Maybe this is a little nod to that. It's not even that strange. Kong has a special attachment to Jaya, for example. Finally, touching on Michelle. What are her actual intentions? She's now on the side of Lee, but is this all a ruse for Monarch? As she seemed to want to uphold her deal with May before she departed with Kate. Either way, I'm not sure of her motives yet. I must say, I really enjoyed that reference to Sandra Brody, although this might just be a ruse to sway my liking. In all seriousness though, it was a great episode, and I'm happy it finally picked up the pace again, especially seeing some new footage of Godzilla. That was nice. I think it's clear to see now we have more questions than answers from this series, and it almost feels like everyone has different motives. Join us next week as we discuss more on this episode in our weekly cast. Do you think Lee might actually be a bad guy? And could Michelle and Sandra have been part of Monarch prior to the 1991 disaster? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for joining us. like and subscribe as it really helps us to grow. And as always, catch you next time with something new.